Welcome to another exciting episode of the Real Estate Mentor Podcast. I am your host, Jonathan Klunk. Thanks for listening. And if you don't want to miss an episode in the future, go ahead and subscribe to us wherever you hear your podcasts. If you're a YouTuber, you can also follow the Real Estate Mentor YouTube channel and get all of this content delivered to you in a little bit of a different format. Today, I'm very excited to have our guest, Eric Moeller, today. Been a fan of his for a while. He's very big in the short-term rental space, both doing deals, making acquisitions, and also from a leadership role, helping other people learn about short-term rentals and growing their portfolio. So it's going to be a really exciting conversation. I have a lot of good questions, so we're going to get right into it. Eric is a seasoned expert in the real estate and hospitality industries with 18 years of experience in real estate and 8 years specializing short-term rentals. He successfully scaled multiple ventures, including Freewild, which we'll talk about, a boutique hotel brand known for its design-forward cabins and encouraging guests to reconnect with nature and with each other. With a loyal following of 10,000 plus entrepreneurs and modern travelers, Eric is well versed in the transition from real estate to hospitality and achieving above average daily rates, which we'd all love to have, and crafting meaningful tech-free experiences for his guests. Eric, thank you so much for joining us today. I am excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and thanks for that awesome intro.
Absolutely. You know, I really specialize in my intros with a little thanks to help from AI.
That's it. ChatGPT, let's go.
You know, I'm really in on Perplexity right now. Found it to be a lot better than ChatGPT. Literally, I still thank the person who introduced me to this like weekly because I'm discovering so many amazing things that it can do. Highly recommend.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible. Yeah, all those little tools, we love them. We use them for everything as much as we can.
All right, well, let's start at your humble beginnings. I can tell you exactly where I was when I first heard about Airbnb. I was planning a little trip for Valentine's Day. We were going to go down to Nashville, and Justin was looking at his phone and introducing me to Airbnb. And I realized that we're looking at people's houses on the inside of it, and we're going to be staying there. I had so many questions. Where do we get the keys? Why are they doing this? But little did I know that first visit that we had was going to completely change the trajectory of my life. So where were you when you first heard about Airbnb and all of this?
Oh man, that's a great question. What comes up for me as I think through that is when I started traveling, really started traveling, I think 2007 ish, right around there. At that time I was using a platform called couch surfing. You familiar with that?
Not familiar with that, but I know that's how Airbnb kind of started too.
Yeah, so it was an old couchsurfing.org. It might still be around. But you would just post up in this area that you're going to of saying hey, I need a couch to crash on, and people would just let you in their home for free. And then when they travel to your area, you're supposed to open up your home to them. It's just kind of a friendly traveler type of support website.
That's not creepy at all. I'm surprised I haven't seen this on Dateline.
Super creepy, man. I've had some crazy experiences there, just dirty homes, party houses. But it was a great way to travel on a budget.
Have you seen Baby Reindeer?
I have.
I kind of envision the room that he was renting, how, he would always have to come home and walk through those parties.
Exactly.
Really trashy room.
Exactly. Yeah. Sleeping on the floor, and the couch surfing host would wake me up. He's like, "Hey, I'm going to a rave right now. You want to come?" I'm like, "No, I do not want to go."
Next time.
So that was back in the day. That was before Airbnb was first starting to come around. Mm-hmm. And I remember not wanting to stay at an Airbnb because at that time it was always about mom and pops. And for some reason, I always thought it was I don't know. It didn't feel like the type of travel that I was seeking. And then fast forward a handful of years, I didn't really use Airbnb much. I came to San Diego, where I live now, for a real estate mastermind. And I met a real estate investor who had told me that he just bought this new building on the waterfront and he converted the whole building to Airbnb. And at that time, I didn't understand what he was saying, right? This was 10 years ago. He's like, "No, it's amazing. I'm making 3 times the amount that I would make if I just rented it out." I'm like, "What are you talking about? I don't understand this." So for that entire mastermind, he broke down his entire business model to me. And I was hooked immediately because at that time I was looking to continue to be in real estate, but then also build something that I could run as I travel. And Airbnb was it for me. And then I haven't turned back since. I've been all in since that time.
You tell any real estate investor you can 3x your money versus traditional rentals, and you definitely have an audience.
Exactly. Yeah, I caught my ear very quickly.
So from that point moving forward, obviously, you caught the bug. Tell us a little bit about your journey to get where you are today. Where'd you start with your first acquisition, and what has life looked like since then in the space?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been in real estate since I was 18. Right from high school, I got into flipping houses. I grew up in construction and carpentry, all that stuff, and I started flipping houses during the subprime markets and started making money trying to figure out the whole real estate world. And I've been in real estate in some aspect since then. It went from a house flipping company to apartment building holdings. And then as soon as I learned about Airbnb, that's when I went all in on the Airbnb movement. So my first Airbnb was here in San Diego about 9 years ago. I partnered with a real estate investor who just bought a building and rehabbed it. And I said, hey, before you rent it out, I would love to take over 2 of your units. I worked out a deal with him and we rented. So we did the arbitrage model essentially. Okay. So we rented his 2 apartments. I furnished it with IKEA stuff very, very quickly and immediately just started making money. And I was like, this is freaking amazing.
IKEA crushed it in those early days, short-term rentals.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It was
Probably
great.
50% of their business.
Yeah. And now we do the complete opposite. I refuse to put any IKEA anything in our properties.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want a model look the same. I mean, I feel like a lot of times I see new properties come on the market as listings on MLS, and I'm looking at the furniture. I'm like, is this an Airbnb? Somebody, it's just their house.
Yeah, you can feel it. I mean, we'll get into this, but yeah, like where I'm at now with Freewild is just the complete opposite of how I started in Airbnb. I first got into short-term rentals strictly to make money. Had no idea about hospitality and cultivating experiences for people. I was only a real estate tool, if you will. But after years of going through arbitrage to property management, and now we're back to ownership and development, my whole view on short-term rentals have completely flipped to where it's hospitality first, real estate second, quality, everything, and just really focusing on intentional experiences for people. So it's been a long journey to get to this point.
And that's probably how you're achieving those massive average daily rates versus, the average is by providing all of that and having that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get into Freewild and a few other things, tell me about, through that journey that you've just explained to us, what are some of the unique challenges that you faced, either that were very different from traditional real estate or looking back, you wish you had known before getting in, especially as you started to scale?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing, and I still today, when I talk to real estate investors that they're seasoned in real estate investing, and then they go into Airbnb or short-term rentals, it's knowing it took me a few years to recognize that we're in a hospitality business first, and real estate business second. That was the biggest lesson for me here, because without driving true hospitality, and Airbnb and short-term rentals, like the traveler has matured over the last few years. They understand what they're looking for, what they're seeking. We've all kind of experienced the terrible Airbnb experiences, but then we've also, have experienced incredible hosting as well. So I think like during that journey, that's something I always communicate to real estate investors is like, you got to know that you're getting into the hospitality business first, and then real estate business second, right? And it's like without driving incredible hospitality and operations, your real estate asset is not going to perform the way that it should or could in that space. So that was the biggest lesson. And then coming along with hospitality is a whole other can of worms of lessons and opportunities of growth.
I can't agree with you any more than I do about the hospitality aspect of it. And I do think that people look at it like a real estate transaction. And, back when we had our management company, that's the first question everybody would ask me: how much money can I make with this? How do I make more money? And like, the money will follow. Like, you have to be thoughtful about what you're putting out there first. This isn't a place where somebody's going to live for a year or two or three and call their home. They're coming into town for a few days, staying there, and then leaving. They're going to have certain expectations that long-term tenants otherwise would not have. So you have to be very mindful of that and in tune with it. And you've been able to do something that I think a lot of short-term rental investors want to do, or would, given the opportunity, and that's to create this boutique kind of hotel style setting, a large plot of land with multiple properties on there. So walk us through your process on that, the market research you did, how you found the land. I believe you built these. Give us a little bit of background on Freewild and your process of getting this up and going once you had that idea to do it and started moving forward with it.
Yeah. So, I knew that I wanted to get back into the ownership side of what I was doing in the short-term rental space and just in real estate in general. So Freewild has been a company that I've been building behind the scenes for a couple of years, and building the brand and the investment thesis and just everything that comes along with creating what we just created with Freewild. And I knew that for us to scale a real short-term rental business, we had to really buy in communities and states that supported short-term rentals.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to, everyone knows this, it's very, very tricky to buy short-term rental properties and know that on a long horizon that your business won't be disrupted with regulation. Right.
Absolutely.
And I
Especially in
couldn't,
bigger cities.
and then everywhere now, right? Because like we were buying in and managing in travel locations, and San Diego, which is like a huge travel destination, and Airbnbs and short-term rentals all over the place, put some of the the most strict short-term rental laws in place, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
like it disrupts what has actually been in certain beach towns for 30, 40, 50 years, right?
Yeah.
So with all that in mind, I started asking the question of like, okay, if I want to build a brand, what does that asset type look like? And I got very clear that we had to control our ability to run our business as it is, right? So that just means that we have to have long-term, short-term rental permits in place or a hotel license.
Mm-hmm.
And I started recognizing that all the bigger companies and investors in the space were moving into hospitality zone properties. So looking at that, you find more hotels and motel structures, which is not really short-term rentals. That's a different game within itself. And then we started stumbling across these like cabin communities and campgrounds and church camps and things like that, where they had the infrastructure and they had cabins, and they were in and around the destinations we wanted to be in. And I recognize that with the right approach, we can buy these, have the hotel license and usage, but then we can design the experience to target short-term rental travelers. Right. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what we do now. We buy these cabin communities, church camps, and campgrounds around the country, and we buy existing cabins. We fully redesign them, and then every property that we're buying, we're adding more square footage to it, so additional cabins and amenities and programming. So that was kind of our approach and how we ended up here. And now I freaking love it. Like we're all into like designing what we call villages, and people are loving it too. Our number one booking channel is Airbnb. Second is our direct booking page. So the short-term rental traveler is still enjoying that experience at our property, but we're still running it as a hotel.
Yeah. And I call these compounds whenever there's multiple properties in a unique destination or setting. And, it feels to me that these are becoming a lot more attractive to guests rather than just like a single house dropped in the middle of a neighborhood, which is, I think, how a lot of short-term rental investors got started. So that allows you to kind of target more adventure-seeking people. And I'm guessing that that's where a lot of the experiential nature of what you provide to your guests that is so appealing from the hospitality side that it makes it a lot easier to do that. Tell me your thoughts on, the compound type of environment versus single freestanding houses and how that allows you to maybe design an experience and attract a different type of traveler.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot to the story of Freewild is and why we're focusing in the markets that we're focusing in. And, like we're specifically buying in secondary markets that are 2 to 3 hour drives from large metro areas. Right.
Okay.
So we're trying to, it's a brand specific type of asset and community that we're moving into because I'm building it for myself. This came during COVID when I was trying to leave the city and all the chaos and get into nature. And then I recognized like, oh, we could always use a place like this. So we can get more into that origin story and why we chose the markets that we chose. But to your question, like what we're doing compared to single family homes, I still think there's a huge opportunity for real estate investors to invest in short-term rental single family homes if you partner with the right property management company or you develop that in-house, right? And continue to drive that hospitality side. But this is what I'm learning with the traveler, the short-term rental traveler. The short-term rental traveler still wants that adventure of either going into a part of town or downtown city that is not like the tourist area and staying at a short-term rental, but they want the consistency of a hotel. Right. They want that consistency of professional hosting. They want to know that they can check in on time. They want to know that their needs are being met, and they want to know that their property is going to be ready for them when they check in. Right. It's very rare if you go into a professional hotel that they forgot to turn over your room. Right. Like that only happens in short-term rentals. Right.
Yeah, because they could
So
just give you another room.
They just give you another room. Sorry about that. And we're going to upgrade you and we're going to discount your rate. And like, dinner's on us. And like, you're like, this is amazing. So it's like,
mess up more, please.
yeah, exactly. People want that in the short-term rental space, right? They want that consistency, but they still want the adventure of a short-term rental and the convenience of a short-term rental. So in my opinion, if you can match that need from the traveler on a single family home, that's amazing, right? Because then the value of that property as an investor shoots through the roof because you're generating a lot of capital on that property versus just a regular rental. But this is why I think a lot of our travelers are really seeking out Freewild because we have the ability, the economy of scale of like having everything centralized on one property is easier to run that versus having, I mean, this, you had a lot of units spread out across the city. It's very difficult to keep all this stuff going and maintaining and making sure everything is done correctly. So we just kind of centralize it. This is our focus. But it doesn't mean that we're never going to buy, like we're looking at beautiful single family homes. We don't know if they'll be under the Freewild brand, but we're always looking for different opportunities. But for us, for Freewild, that being able to over deliver on that experience, meet those standards and exceed those standards are a lot easier for us to do it on a compound or a village.
Right. And you actually just very naturally answered my next question, which was going to be about the operations, that having multiple doors, multiple properties on a single lot gives you the ability to potentially have on-site management, somebody nearby, much easier to take care of all of your guests and handle repairs, turnovers, all of that the closer they are together, which makes complete sense. And, I love the idea of being about 2 hours outside of a major city. We're seeing that pop up a lot in small, slightly rural parts of Kentucky along the Bourbon Trail, because a lot of those bourbon distilleries are about an hour to 2 hours outside of Louisville, in Frankfort, Lexington, Bardstown, and then beyond. And then, of course, consequently, they're starting to put short-term rental rules in place, but that's primarily like for those downtown areas. So when you find land that you can develop and put a lot of these, some people do tiny homes, some people do, duplexes. I've even seen people take RVs and put them there, or not RVs, I'm sorry, like mobile homes. Yeah. But also mobile homes, because you can build a deck around those things. You could put a hot tub out there and design those to where they don't look or feel like a mobile home, but it's a lot better than stick built when you're talking about time and getting up and going. So definitely seeing that, and I'm going to lock that one away.
Yeah. It's a huge opportunity. And And like it gives you more opportunity to create unique experiences for people. And that's what they're seeking. Travelers are seeking that. And I think it's also like as more regulations are coming into play in our industry, I think we've seen a maturity of the traveler, but I think we're also now seeing a maturity of the industry where it's like we're starting to figure out how to scale this professionally and make it sustainable. And the only way to do that is you have to control the asset. The only way to control the asset is to get the approval from the government body saying like, okay, you're a short-term rental company or you're a hotel company and you have the okay to do this, right? And you're locked in. So yeah, we're seeing these all over the place. We're trying to buy those as well of like turnkey properties that have already villages, compounds that are already in place that are running. So I'm all in on that. But that's just my model. I don't think everyone needs to do that. I think it's like whatever direction you want to go in the short-term rental industry, from condos downtown to tree houses to compounds, as long as you approach it with the hospitality side, good operations, and something that's unique to it, I think you do very well.
Well, I'm going to have a compound listing coming up pretty soon with 11 properties on it. So I'll make sure that hits your desk.
Go. I love it.
Let's talk about structure, the business structure. Is this a property that you own completely outright with your own money? Did you finance this? Do you have a partnership? Was there creative financing involved? How did this come together?
Yeah, so this our first Freewild location, we bought at the height of the market. So no owner financing in place for that. They just wanted to cash out. So our property, our business model is a propco opco model. So in the propco, we raise all private investors to acquire the real estate side. So as of right now, we just syndicate each individual deal. We have a handful of high wealth individuals that are backing us on a majority of our purchases right now. And then in the future, the vision is to create a fund where is specifically designed to acquire and develop out these properties. So right now we're just like project by project, syndicating them with our direct network. We buy them 100% cash. Our investors also fund the renovation of the property and the build of the property, of the new cabins. And then the business plan is to refinance out within 2 to 3 years of full operations under the Freewild banner. And then once
so you can continue to grow.
Continue to grow, obviously make more, the properties will generate more capital, of course. And then 2 is because we're driving so much appreciation in these properties, that's where we can start paying everybody out, making some capital as we expand the brand.
Right. Some distributions.
But yeah, exactly. And then the Freewild brand, the opco, the operational side, is completely separate from the propco, and we run that as the management brand, as the operations, and that's the day-to-day of the company.
I love it. That's a near perfect business model for this scenario, especially having the brand and the real estate separate. Now, is this a true syndication, or is this more kind of like an LLP, like a limited partnership?
Yeah, so it's not a true syndication. I just use that terminology.
Okay.
We have partners in an LLC. So we came together to acquire this property. Everyone has their equity. Plus, it's all our direct network of people that we've been working with for a long time that has understood, and they've invested in different companies that we've done in the past. And so, yeah, as of right now, we come together as partners. In the future, we'll be syndicating through outside investors, and we're raising capital right now, where the goal is to, in the next, I think we got 50 days left to raise an additional 15 million of soft commitments from private investors that will go into some properties that we've been negotiating for the last 6 months.
Okay.
Hoping we close.
I hope so too. Continue to grow. So are you looking for just primarily qualified investors for this kind of first round, or can non-qualified investors maybe reach out if they have interest or want to have a chat with you about something like that?
Yeah, I would love to talk to anybody who's interested in investing. It also sharpens my skill set of understanding investors' temperature, what they're looking for, if our model even makes sense, to the masses. It makes sense to us now. But as we start scaling this, the only way to know is to get a feedback loop from people. So I love to talk to anyone who's interested in investing into real estate. especially as a LP. Yeah, I'd love to chat with them. The legal side, we'll see how that narrows down per
Right.
property.
You don't want the SEC breathing down your neck.
Right.
So let's talk about average daily rate, profit and loss, things of that nature, especially when you're looking to refinance something like this. Obviously, cash purchase is great. Mm-hmm. When you go to refinance, you have the banking underwriting component. Then you're also going to have the big question mark, which is the appraiser. And appraisers are not like fully on board with short-term rentals. They don't think that it's a stable industry. They don't like using rental income that we provide to them. They kind of look more for a comparison to long-term rentals in most markets right now. But I think that they're starting to consider putting some rules into place on how they can use this. I mean, after all, even your DSCR lenders are willing to take AirDNA figures whenever they're calculating how much to loan to you. So obviously, strong P&L for at least 24 months is going to be really important. You want to, minimize those costs as much as possible, maximize the revenue, and then that's where this high average daily rate comes in. So tell us about your average daily rate. A, what does yours look like in comparison to your competition? And B, what have you done specifically that you feel is directly improving that?
Yeah, great question. Talking about like ADR and like what we do to drive that, we actually stopped really focusing on ADR and we started focusing on RevPAR, right? Okay. So revenue, essentially it's more of an accurate number to track, right? Because ADR is, to us, ADR doesn't matter, right? Because on the weekends, our cabins that's when we have the most demand, right?
Right.
And our ADR is through the roof. But then if we kept the ADR at that same rate during the weekends, we're going to have these massive gaps during the day where our demand in these mountain towns are a lot lower. So we track RevPAR. That's the thing that's really, really important to us, because it's like, out of all the days that are available for all the units that we have, what is the average rate that we're renting this at, right? So it's more of an accurate number to determine how well your property is doing.
I could not agree more, because, we have things like the Kentucky Derby here in Louisville, where normally a house that goes for 150 to 200 a day is going to go for 3,500 to 4,000 a day. Exactly. And then that just throws off your whole number for the year. And so it's not even an accurate number to be able to use to set your rates.
Yeah. So we had, part of Freewild is we have a revenue management service that we offer to property management companies and investors at scale.
Something you created?
Yeah. So actually all around this topic of like, how do we drive revenue? How do we maximize revenue as much as possible? So that's how we developed a revenue management strategy for Freewild that got just incredible results. And then we started offering that out to some partners and clients of ours that we been working with in some other avenues, and the results are have been incredible. So we've been offering this out to short-term rental hosts and operators that are doing $1 million or more in revenue.
Okay,
with the same philosophy of like, the reason why I bring this up is like we had one client who came in. He had 50 listings. He was an investor that he owned. Very smart guy, but very ego driven on his properties and how he made decisions, all that stuff. And he's like, he had these beautiful mountain houses. I will not take less than $1,000 per night for these properties. I'm like, why is that? Well, because it's the best property on the mountain and that's what it deserves. Do not take less than $1,000 a night. Okay, great. Well, I can say that it's 10,000 a night. He's like, oh, that's great. Yeah. Well, you're not going to get bookings. And if you do, you're not maximizing revenue. Mm-hmm. So forget about ADR and let's focus on revenue and how much this property is generating. So it takes a lot for this industry to switch the mindset from ADR is important to RevPAR is important, right? So we got to flip that around. To answer your question, what we did with Freewild is we developed out a revenue management strategy with RevPAR in mind, focusing on how do we maximize the bookability and the revenue in these properties on a month-to-month basis.
Okay.
Along with that, I'm a huge believer, and you can see this in our brand, I'm a huge believer that brand, marketing, and incredible hospitality needs to go side by side with your revenue management strategy.
Brand,
right? It's not
marketing, incredible hospitality.
You have to have, we call it, have you read the book Unreasonable Hospitality?
I have not.
Highly recommend everybody read that book.
Incredible Hospitality. Do you remember who wrote it?
Yeah, it's called Unreasonable Hospitality.
Unreasonable Hospitality. Okay.
Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Gardera. He was the owner of 11 Madison Park in Manhattan, the number one restaurant in the world for years, and he wrote his thesis and his practice on unreasonable hospitality. So it's based around the restaurant industry, but it's so powerful that we brought that in, and that's our number one core value for our companies: unreasonable hospitality.
Incredible. Yeah.
Right. So we could touch on that, and I can kind of share some lessons from that. But how to drive revenue is like you have to have a real revenue management strategy in place. And then two, how you market the property and then how your operations are, the hospitality side will really dictate how well you can outperform the market. So the hosts that are just taking a property, putting a pricing tool in place and just doing automated messaging and just like the easy side of the business, they're never going to maximize the potential of that property if they took the different approach of a real strategy, marketing the property correctly and really focusing on unreasonable hospitality. To me, those are going to be the outliers in our industry.
So I think that a lot of people are utilizing automation in the business. I think that, people probably have third-party software plugged in to help maximize those rates and revenue. What are some of the baseline hits that you would recommend for people who would like to be able to provide more unreasonable hospitality? Maybe they don't have a lot of time. Maybe they have a management company in place who may not be able to take those steps. What are just some of your baseline recommendations that anybody could start doing today or tomorrow to improve that aspect of their business?
It's all about intention. Every aspect of from the moment that a guest finds your property on Airbnb to when they look at the photos, to when they message you, to when they show up, to when they check in, to their experience. We have a whole guest journey that we've mapped out. I forget how many points are on it, but we've mapped out I'm not telling everyone needs to do this, but we've mapped out every single step from when someone finds our property to when they pack their bags, to when they jump in the car, to when they arrive. And it's all about intention for us, right? So I think for people that want to go deeper into unreasonable hospitality, it's really understanding that your goal is you got to remove ego, and your goal is all about that guest having an absolute incredible time, seamless time. If there's any issues, regardless of how they bring those issues to you, your job as a hospitality provider is to solve that problem. It's not to make them wrong. It's not to argue on why your cleaning company showed up late and, they always do this. And, I always get the bad Airbnb guests and they always leave me the crappy reviews. It's like, that's how I used to host for a long time until I started recognizing like, oh, this is a hospitality business. What is hospitality?
Yeah.
It's all about serving other human beings. That's it. And it's like serving other humans, removing the ego. So there's a lot to this. I highly recommend the book. And I think if you want to start implementing more hospitality into your short-term rental business, it's all about just intention at the end of the day. How do you intend to create a world-class experience for somebody?
That's an excellent point. Is there anything else that you do that you feel falls into that space? Do you leave like a welcome basket for them whenever they come, or a bottle of wine, or try and find out what they like before they get there and cater to that? What are some extra things that we might be able to do? Because yes, hospitality is big, but obviously everybody's definition of that, ability to implement that might be a little different.
Yeah, we do a lot of small things, right? So we always leave a welcome gift for somebody, and it's little items that are from the town that are telling the story. The whole idea of coming to Freewild is to help people disconnect from technology while they're traveling. And we have a whole programming on how to do that in our property. So everything in our property is intended to help you disconnect and be present as you're traveling, right? So that we definitely leave that with a handwritten note to the person, right? Or people that are checking in. One thing that we started doing that was inspired by the book, Unreasonable Hospitality, is actually leaving a parting gift to the guests as well. Because what we recognized is that, and I'm sure you experience this in your business, like when turnover at the end of the day, like 10 a.m. comes, it's like, okay, I got to turn this over because I got other people checking in and I got cleaners. I got to do, I got to fix the maintenance stuff, all this stuff. Right. So at the last day that someone's checking out, it becomes such a transactional experience. And
Yeah.
that, if you think of memories, like, and how humans develop positive memories around something, it's when they arrive and first experience something, and it's also how they depart from it. And if we're just pushing them out, you got to get out because we got other people coming in. It just creates a transactional space, and you can lose that opportunity for the guest to leave the positive review or come back and do more business with you. So we've made it very intentional to where we, hey, checkout time is at 10, but if you need extra time, no worries. We'll give you to 11, right? We kind of baked that in already with our team. So we already give them some extra time. 2 is we give them a gift. Everyone's driving about 2 hours to get back home. So we give them a road trip gift as well. And then lastly is personal communication. So we'll have a team member send a little video to them. Hey, really appreciate you guys being here. We really want you to come back, reach back out. We'd love to have you in the future. So it's all about just those human touches. And we're finding that people are now rebooking with us because of that. We built trust with the traveler. So they're not going to Airbnb, they're coming to freewyld.com, they're booking a property, and now they're identifying with the brand. Right. So all these little things are unique to us. But I think people can implement things like that, thinking through how do you build trust with the people that are with your guests that are staying with you.
Those are all great ideas. And, I'm inspired to just look at my own real estate business and see how I can make little changes to provide the same benefit as well to my clients. So let's talk about the future of short-term rentals. A lot of us who are really invested in this, on the real estate side, hosting side, always thinking about what's next. You never want to be left behind. You almost want to be on the forefront of that wave, being the people who are pushing it forward. What are some of the trends that you think are going to really drive success in the short-term rental business, besides just the hospitality, and maybe location plays into that? Travel trends, obviously, Gen Z is going to want to do different things than baby boomers are going to do. You might have smaller units, 2-bedroom units versus the 5 and 6 bedroom houses for larger group travel. Just different segments, locations, trends. What do you think is going to drive the industry in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of what we've been talking about is I think brands are the future of short-term rentals because guests are really seeking reliability. They want to understand, like, if they check in, property is going to be ready for them. And if they need somebody, if there's a problem, that someone's going to be there to solve that problem for them. And not, the automations are great, but I really think that human aspect is what people are really seeking, right? So as far as like what asset to get into, that's like someone asking, what restaurant, what kind of, I want to be in the restaurant business. Great. What kind of food do you want to cook? You can cook from, Chinese food to Italian food to American food. Like, what kind of food do you want? We have the same amount of options in the short-term rental space. So with that, it's being intentional with who you want to serve in the space. So really thinking through that, like, the reason why I built a business with these beautifully designed cabins in nature locations, because I was seeking that as a traveler and I couldn't find that asset. So I built it for me, and I recognized, like, oh, there's a lot of people that are seeking the same thing. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the trend, is developing brands that serve a certain type of traveler versus what I used to do, which was I would say yes to any type of property, take that property on. It would be a studio apartment to a 10-bedroom mansion in SoCal, right? And it's like I had everything in between. And I was just relying on Airbnb to drive bookings, right? There was no brand there. So I do think developing out an intentional brand around who you're serving is going to be the factor on what companies or hosts or investors succeed in the future versus the ones that burn out. And there's a lot that are burning out because they're just getting properties, throwing cheap furniture in there, automating everything. And then once they start getting those negative reviews, the algorithm Airbnb starts pushing them down, and they haven't focused on how do I acquire guests from anywhere else. And then they end up either going midterm rentals, which is great, or just going back to regular long-term rentals. So I
Yeah.
really do think that's the future, is like investing in brand.
Brands. Yeah, I do agree with that. Even with us, when we had our management company, Key Source Properties, I would say that we were guilty of scaling too much. And then, it just becomes this chore of what you have to do. That the only time guests would really reach out is when there was a problem or an issue. And then, the way that they presented it, and that does wear on you. And we were working to create a brand, locally. I don't think that we were incredibly successful at doing that. I could never really find a way to get people to book outside of Airbnb. And I want people to understand that creating a brand is, something that you have to commit to doing, and then know that it's going to take a minute,
It's
because
hard.
you can't just
Yeah.
do Google ads to drive people to you. You don't know who's coming to Louisville or wherever your city is, how to target them whenever they're searching. Of course, we're getting a lot better with those tools than we were 5-6 years ago when we were in the heyday of our business. But yeah, I mean, I own discoverlouisville.com, and that was going to be my booking site. And after I tried building out a website and integrating it with our software, with Airbnb, and getting the rates on there, and all of this, like it just was very clunky back then. And so we just abandoned it and said, we're just solely using Airbnb and VRBO because it's the easiest thing. But I do
Yep.
agree with you that people want authenticity, especially in this day and age when everything is so automated and AI driven. Certainly a place for that, but we're going to start craving those human interactions and the authenticity, especially when they're looking for these more adventure style situations. So really good
Yeah.
advice there.
And let me touch on that again real quick and just kind of correct what I just said. Like, I do believe that you can build a brand on Airbnb. You could be a brand on Airbnb without having to have the consumer side to understand how to acquire the customer offline and drive them to your website and all of that. There's plenty of companies and investors that just focus on building an Airbnb style brand, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
works extremely well, but you have to understand the risks that come along with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Airbnb is not they made it very clear that they're not a company for professional hosts. They're a company for the mom and pop host, right? They made that very clear. So at any moment, that rug could be pulled out, right? It's like Amazon companies that are just focused on selling products on Amazon. It's like you have one channel, it's super, super risky, right? So I still think that's possible. But at the end of the day, it's like, if you can create something that people understand. We have so many different touch points. Our properties on the web on Airbnb are branded Freewild. All the messages come from the team of Freewild. When you're at the property, our brand is everywhere. And then as you're checking out, we're communicating to you that you can book direct. And we have all these different avenues on building trust with the traveler to our brand. But you're 100% right. It takes time. You got to be patient, and you got to want to create a brand. You're creating two separate things: your business and then the brand, which is a lot of work, but it's very fulfilling.
If you could go back and give newbie short-term rental investor Eric some advice, what would that advice be?
Move fast, but take your time.
Hurry up and wait.
Hurry up and wait. Because we're going through this now. Like of course, I have a lot more experience as a business owner, entrepreneur, CEO. But back when I first started, there was so much like uncertainty and in my mind, and that really drove how I made decisions in the business. And I did the same thing. I scaled very, very quickly, but just with no direction. Where now we are moving very, very fast as far as like bringing on the right investors, bringing on the right team members, making fast decisions. But we're all focused on this idea that Freewild is a 20-year journey. I'm not focused on the hockey stick growth. That happens organically because the marketplace absolutely loves the product of what we're creating, and there's so much demand for it that our business grows that quick. That's incredible, but that's not the goal, right? In the past, the goal was always about like, how do I become a unicorn company right away, right? How do I
Yeah.
become the name in the space? And that's all ego driven at the end of the day. So that would be the advice. It's like, move fast, but take your time with what we're building here. The goal is not hockey stick growth. The goal is to build a sustainably wealthy company that that can last through all the ups and downs of, the marketplace. So
Yeah.
um, that's what I'm experiencing right now.
That's a great goal. Yeah, and I think a lot of times, you talk about the unicorn and overnight success. People don't, it's like an iceberg. People don't see everything. You see the top, you see the success that people have, and you assume it's overnight. You assume it came easy, that they did something that you didn't. But what you don't see is what's beneath the water of that iceberg and everything that they've put into that, the blood, sweat, and the tears, the sleepless nights, the countless phone calls of rejection, the hosting your neighborhood meetings, going to zoning boards, trying to make sure that you have all this stuff right. In this instance, they miss a lot of that. And I think you and I both got into short-term rentals at a very interesting point when there was zero playbook for this.
Right.
Nobody had written a book on short-term rental hosting. There was not a single piece of software out there to automate anything. We were copying and pasting check-in and check-out messages to all of our guests. I remember Justin would get mad at me because I would send it to the wrong person, like when they had another night or two with us, and kind of freak them out. He's like, "You're going to get us a bad review." I mean, that's how we started. It was a lot of work. It still is a lot of work, but even more so back then. I don't even think that we could integrate our Airbnb and VRBO calendars to block off the dates. We were going in there and individually doing it. And at one point just stopped using VRBO altogether because it became impossible to manage. But yeah, when you get into a space where there is no playbook for it, it's very interesting, and everybody's going to go a different direction and build it in a slightly different way to find that success.
100%.
Yeah.
And I love what you said on the overnight success definition. We have a other company called Overnight Success. It's a training company for short-term rental companies.
Okay.
We help them scale their operations. But my definition behind that is overnight success takes one night at a time over the course of 10 years, right? I've been blessed to be surrounded by some really successful entrepreneurs. And I have a close friend who he sold a portion of his company and did very, very well. It's worth over $1 billion now. He started it, from his dorm room, the whole thing. And I was asking him about that. I'm like, hey, how does it feel to be in this position, to be a billionaire? And he's like, everyone thinks that I became an overnight success overnight. He's like, and he said exactly what you said, that he's like, no one has asked me about the 10-year journey of ups and downs of constantly deciding, do I keep this open? Do I shut it down every single day for 10 years until this one little pop blew up? And now we're here and everyone thinks that it was an overnight success. He's like, so 100%, everyone that I see that's out there that is that air quote overnight success has a 10-year journey of failing forward to get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
I'm super passionate about that message of like, if you want to be an overnight success, buckle in for a 10-year journey.
Patience is a virtue.
Mm-hmm.
Last question I have for you. What'd you have for lunch today?
I haven't eaten today.
Intermittent fasting?
I have. Yeah. So I'm training right now. I get married in about 60 days.
Congratulations.
And thank you. So now we're in the cut phase, getting ready for the wedding. And part of that is not eating until about noon. So I'm very hungry right now. And then it's chicken and rice for the next few weeks.
I hope you got a good workout routine going along with that.
Yeah. I work out with I have a private trainer that I work with. And that's a big part of my life is like really focusing on the fitness side.
Yeah. I've been focused on fitness since about December of this past year. And I just use a workout app so I can do it whenever I want to. I go up to our third floor, I have like a bench and barbells or dumbbells and a few kettlebells, but consistency is key. If you have to show up every time you say you're going to, regardless of what happens, and you will definitely start seeing results. I am in the best shape of my life, at least physically looking. I love walking past a mirror right now.
Yeah.
I purposefully go running shirtless and I just look and see, and people respond differently the better shape you get in. I'm just trying to get used to that.
It feels good though, right? Like, I felt so good. That's a whole nother podcast to go into, but I had a whole other journey on the fitness side of like, being 300 pounds and losing 80 something pounds now and going through like different journeys of being an athlete. And when I got deep into the entrepreneur world, and this is how Freewild came about. I was like super overweight, super unhealthy, not sleeping, anxiety, the whole thing. But I was making a lot of money in my other company. And I was like, what am I doing this for? So I recognized that I needed to fully commit to this. So I literally I found the best trainer I can find. I'm like, dude, I need you to like push me every day. So for a year, we've been training together 5 days a week. And it is one of the greatest things I could have ever done, not just for my health and like obviously all the benefits that come along with that, but how it's impacted my business and me as an entrepreneur and as a leader.
Trickles down. You start improving one area of your life and it's automatically going to start improving other areas.
100%. I think it's the greatest hack for any entrepreneur is to like fully commit to fitness
and mental health.
Yeah, that's it. 100%. It's all down for the mental health, right? So,
all right. Well, you know what? Thank you so much for joining us today. Before we leave, is there anything else that we did not cover that you think is important that maybe you wanted to share with the audience?
No, that's it. I mean, if anybody wants to reach out, they can find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best spot. I'm on there quite a bit, not really on social anymore. And then if anybody wants to chat about real estate investing or what we do, just reach out to me on the Freewild website.
Very good. You want to spell that for us?
Yeah. FreeWyld.com.
Wild with a Y.
That's it.
Eric, thank you so much for joining us today. We really benefited from your expertise, all of your time in the short-term rental industry. We wish you the absolute best with what you're building and scaling. I have no doubt it's going to be as successful as you want it to be over the next 10 to 20 years.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate you opening up the platform for me. So thank you.
And thank you guys for listening. Join us again in 2 weeks for another exciting episode of Real Estate Mentor Podcast, where we will give you actionable tips that you can put into practice today to improve or to continue scaling your real estate investing business. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great day.